Where the Sand Meets the Sea, written by The Stranger. You ever wonder if your soul could drift off from your physical body, like your dreams were a mirror of the very soul you held inside? Shalem from Oman was one of these dreamers. He would have vivid dreams, sometimes of magical places far away that only he could enjoy. His motivation carried him through adolescence until he eventually became a scientist. The thought of making dreams come to life had always piqued his interest. Today, he had finally done it. He had created a machine that he was going to show off to his guests. The drive through the desert was long and arduous. Their destination was a lonely dune half a mile out from the coastline. The people in his company were Kasathra, Imelek, Muwakil, and Capri. Imelek and Muwakil were both scientists like Shalem was, so surely they'd be excited by this. Kasathra was a mercenary tasked with protecting the machine at all costs. Capri, on the other hand, was much closer. She was Shalem's sister, so naturally she had to be one of the first people to see it. They parked their car at the bottom of the dune and began their ascent. "I have it right here. This is the machine that I was talking about," Shalem said. In front of them were a row of 4 capsules with oval-shaped glass panes showing the inside. "This is amazing. How does it work?" Imelek said, rubbing against the metal pod. "It's like a dream capsule in a sense. Subjects who enter a pod will fall asleep immediately and find themselves in a place I call the dreamscape." "It sounds like something that'd kill you," Kasathra said with his tattooed arms crossed. "Not to me. This sounds like a breakthrough," Capri said. "Kasathra, don't worry yourself. I've tested this machine many times and I have had no casualties. I'm sure you could assume that there is a catch, however," Shalem said. "Oh no, I was waiting for this," Muwakil said. "We need to stay the night here before we can start. You'll understand when I show you," Shalem said. That night, they set up a tent by their vehicle. Inside, the group gathered around a small wooden box Shalem had set in front of them. "What's this all about?" Capri said. Shalem pulled out a small black square object and put it on the box. It was a shiny television with 2 slim antennas protruding from the top. He turned the knob until a clear picture came on screen. It depicted an old soap opera, complete with the rushed set design and dramatic pauses. "This is how we will begin our experiment. As you know, dreams are created through the memories or thoughts of our waking life. Sometimes they come from elements of a show such as the one you are all watching now. The only thing you guys will need to do tonight is watch whatever is on screen and remember it. You just might have a dream about it tonight," Shalem said. "What's the importance of dreaming about something if we don't use the machine until the next morning?" Muwakil said. "You must wait and see," Shalem said. Later that night, Muwakil, Imelek, and Capri all went to sleep. Shalem was the last one awake with only Kasathra to keep him company. "You enjoyed the show?" Kasathra said. They were watching an old American pirate movie from the 90s. It wasn't the best movie, but it would suffice for the time being. "If it helps me dream, I suppose so," Shalem said. "You know, when you approached me on the street, I was surprised you wanted me to come along," Kasathra said. "I need someone to protect the machine. If people found out about it, they'd be racing over. Since you're here, I figured you might as well be a part of it," Shalem said, continuing to watch the screen. "I'm a lucky man," Kasathra said. "You are? See, I thought you were a little rough in the beginning, but you're not so bad in the end," Shalem said. Kasathra smiled at him as the light from the TV lit his face like a bulb. "Thanks," Kasathra said. In the morning, the 5 of them exited the tent and walked over to the pods. "All right, I need one of you to stay behind for the first trial. I only have 4 pods," Shalem said. "I'll stay behind," Imelek said. "Perfect. It seems that we're ready to start," Shalem said, climbing into the first pod. The rest followed, hopping into their own adjacent capsules and watching the glass close over them. A sprayer filled each of their pods with gas as they put them straight to sleep. Shalem felt himself drift off as his eyelids became heavy. As quick as it began, he woke up in a world that was both familiar and unfamiliar to him. The place he saw was just like his own, but different. The sky was darker, with long streaks of white cascading through the sky like a rocket. There was a constant, strong wind blowing in the air as the clouds swirled violently. The others were also there, basking in this new world they found themselves in. "This is something I could have never imagined," Capri said. They could see Imelec too, however her body was faded as if she did not belong in this place. She could not see them from what Shalem could interpret. "Who is that woman in the distance?" Cassandra said, pointing to another dune. Standing there was an older woman with wrinkles so defined you could mistake them as crumpled up pieces of paper. She approached one of us without muttering a single word. "Mom?" Muwakil exclaimed. He rushed over to the woman and hugged her. She embraced him back immediately. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Muwakil said, detaching from their hug. Before his eyes, the woman started fading away. Her body turned to sand in an instant before crumbling over. Muwakil stepped back in shock. Shalem put his hand on Muwakil's shoulder. "What did you dream of last night?" Shalem said. "I dreamed of seeing my mom again. I remember thinking about her last night because I wanted to see her. I miss her," Muwakil said. "That answers it. Your dream has now come to life right in front of your eyes," Shalem said. He turned to the others to continue his lecture. "Each of your dreams have now been manifested from the previous night. Anything you have seen will appear in front of you if you want it to," Shalem said. Capri thought for a moment before something was summoned to her. A strange metal object landed in front of them. Capri walked over to it with caution before picking it up and examining it. A large blue light shone from a glass pane on the front, with 3 jagged metal prongs sticking out. On the other side of the device was a handle and a trigger that you could grab to use it. "I know what this is. This is the gravity gun that I dreamed about," Capri said. "Is that the other project I told you I was working on?" Shalem said. "It seems like it. I guess it's stuck in my head," Capri joked. Shalem turned to Cassandra, who was looking extremely uncomfortable. "Cassandra, would you like to show off your dream?" Shalem said. Cassandra paused for a moment and then obliged. Out of the sand emerged a tall pirate ship with 3 massive sails flowing in the heavy wind. The wood looked to be brand new, as if someone had just built it. Then what followed caught them all off guard. A disembodied voice began screaming at them. "Abraham! Abraham!" the voice cried. Cassandra stood there in fear as it continued. The voice then dissipated into the air as Shalem looked to the others in confusion. Their expressions matched his. "Who is Abraham?" Capri mustered. "It's a name people gave me a long time ago," Cassandra said simply. Shalem was silent at the event that just occurred. "Let's go get Imelec," Shalem said. When the pod opened up, Imelec rushed over to them. "How was it? I'm excited to try it," Imelec said. "It's amazing. You won't believe the things that you can see," Shalem said. "I was hoping that," Imelec said. A loud crack rang through the air. Something began dripping from Imelec's chest. Her clothes began to soak with a thick streak of blood running down to her legs. She toppled over, holding the wound with her hands. Her throat would not ring a single vocal cord. She was in shock. Shalem looked in horror as she died there unexpectedly. "What just hit?" Muwakil said. An invisible hole protruded through his neck. Blood began oozing out of it as he himself dropped to the sand dead. "Capri, get out of here!" Shalem yelled. Capri ran in desperation. The fear she felt was not for her, it was for her brother. As for that moment, he was safe, because in that same moment, she was the one who was shot. She was the third to fall to the earth. Shalem ran over to her as she struggled to pull her face from the sand. He held her in his arms as she struggled to breathe. "No, don't leave me, I need you," Shalem cried. I can't," Capri said. "You have to. I want you to see me succeed. I can't do that without you," Shalem said. Capri looked at him with tears streaming down her face. "You are enough without any of that," Capri said. She went limp. Shalem cried with tears falling onto Capri. He couldn't bear to look at her. "You can't go. I made the machine for you," Shalem said in a murmur. He looked over to the pod he had come out of with his reddened eyes. All four of the pods were empty except for one. Kasathra still laid in his pod, asleep. Hatred burned inside Shalem as he realized what had happened. He ran towards the pods as gunshots rang from nowhere in his direction. They hit the sand behind him, barely missing his ankles. He jumped into his pod and booted it up. The glass pane sealed over him as he locked it. Gas filled the chamber as gunshots continued to ring from outside. Shalem felt himself drift off to sleep again. Shalem awoke again in that other world. He could see Kasathra's spirit walking up to him with a gun in his hand. He fired 4 straight bullets into Shalem's chest. Despite this, Shalem felt nothing. The holes simply filled themselves up as if nothing had happened. He placed his hands on his chest and felt that he was safe. Kasathra threw down the gun when he realized it was useless. He ran over and grabbed the gravity gun, which was still laying there in the sand. He used it to raise his pod out of the sand and run off with it. He summoned his ship from earlier and placed the pod on its hull. Shalem tried to stop him, but was shot back by the force of the gravity gun. He flew through the air over the dune and sent tumbling to the bottom. He got up and ran back to the top with sand scattering around his feet. He returned to his original position just in time to see the ship sail across the desert. "Traitor! Traitor! Traitor!" Shalem yelled continuously. Kasathra could not hear him. He was too far away. Shalem stood there, still in shock of the events that transpired. This was not what he had expected. Now 3 people were dead, including his sister. He couldn't bear to recollect it. His dream was to change the world with that machine. Now it was going to be used for whatever nefarious purposes Kasathra had in store. Or Abraham, as Shalem figured he'd call him. His mind wandered to the movie they had both watched last night. How he seemed strangely calm despite his insidious demeanor. Shalem suddenly remembered something crucial. If Kasathra's dream of the ship came from the movie, could he summon one as well? He thought about it for a moment before calling to it under his breath. Another ship rose out of the sand that looked almost identical to Kasathra's. Shalem marveled at it in awe before climbing the wooden rungs off the side of the ship. He ran to the wheel and started sailing after the other ship. Shalem chased after Kasathra as his life depended on it. He knew that once Kasathra reached the water, there would be no way of catching him. The shoreline was rapidly approaching as a field of blue shone itself over the horizon. Kasathra spotted him and aimed the cannons in his direction. Balls of fire soared through the sky, making contact with Shalem's ship. Shalem ran around the fire as it spread across the front mast. Soon it would reach the wheel where he was. As the ship sailed next to Kasathra's, Shalem was forced to jump. He grabbed a sword and leaped over to the other side and landed on the hard wood. Kasathra looked at him in hatred, as Shalem did the same. They lunged at each other with such anguish that they were practically collided with one another. Their blades pierced each other's hearts as blood trickled from the wounds. They pulled the blades out and slashed again. Shalem's blade hit Kasathra's elbow, while Kasathra's hit Shalem's stomach. They screamed in pain as the two continued to stab each other in various places. What started as a duel devolved into a bloody massacre. Meanwhile, the ship had made its port with the water. They were now sailing with the strong winds carrying the two of them out to sea. Kasathra pushed Shalem back as his sword made contact again. "Stop! You can't understand what this means. What needs to happen," Kasathra said. "And my friends' deaths were necessary for that?" Shalem said. "Everyone's death is necessary. You won't understand," Kasathra said. Tell me why my sister is gone," Shalem yelled. "This machine you've created, it can be used to destroy just as much as it can give. Why not use it to end this?" Kasathra said. "End this? What are you talking about?" Shalem yelled. "End everything, Shalem. This machine could be used to wipe out the human race if we so choose. They would never see it, but they'd be gone long before then," Kasathra said. You would destroy everything just for the sake of it? Why?" Shalem said. "I've seen the peak of human suffering. The things our legacy has created must end today. You are a smart man. I promise I will leave you for last if you go," Kasathra said. Shalem pulled himself up from the railing and faced Kasathra. You think human beings are disposable? You must be lost, Shalem said. I'm not lost. I've given it a great deal of thought, actually. Why would you waste your time saving a world that doesn't want you? Kasathra said. Because human beings are good and bad. I can't act like everything is horrible when clearly it is not. I choose to give meaning to my life, just like I choose to save every walk of life regardless. If you can't accept that, then I can't let you go any further, Shalem said. If only you knew me when they called me Abraham, Kasathra said. He threw his sword at Shalem, who was impaled by it. The blade stuck into the wood of the railing, leaving Shalem pinned. Kasathra threw Shalem's head onto the railing and started bashing it over and over again. Shalem struggled to fight back, flailing his arms in the air, missing Kasathra entirely. Shalem didn't know what to do. Any second now he'd be thrown off the ship and would lose the machine. He thought and thought in those few moments he had left, then an idea popped in his head. He grabbed Kasathra's arms and summoned something. Kasathra and Shalem woke up in a strange place. It was a dark room with square walls all around them. Where did you take us? Kasathra said. I dreamed of something else last night. You know, with all the work I put into that machine, I began to feel stuck. Stuck in a way that I couldn't really focus on anything else. I really thought I created something special. So, when I was watching the pirate movie last night, I wasn't focusing on it. Instead, I was staring at the TV itself. I wondered what it would be like to be trapped in some closed-up space. Then I dreamed about it, Shalem said. But wouldn't I be able to escape if I dreamed of an exit? Kasathra said. That's the catch. One of us is going to dream about it first. It will take time, but eventually it will happen. The person who does will be able to leave and get back to the machine before the other. There's no way of telling, Shalem said. So you're saying it's a game of chance, Kasathra said. If I get out first, I can destroy the machine before you can use it. If you get out first, the machine will be long gone out at sea before I can catch up to you, Shalem said. Kasathra looked at Shalem and examined every single wall of their prison. All right, we will wait, Kasathra said. Thank you guys so much. That was Where the Sand Meets the Sea. Be sure to like and subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful day.